Let me speak to someone today who's been giving their heart, their time, their energy so freely, hoping people will recognize your value. But here's the truth. When everything about you is always available, when your kindness is unlimited, when your attention is constant, people begin to take it for granted. They don't see the treasure in your presence. They see it as a convenience. God is calling you to guard your heart, to raise your standards, and to understand that respect isn't earned by overgiving. It's earned by your self-worth, by setting boundaries, and by showing that your presence is valuable. There is power in restraint. There is power in selectivity. And there is power in recognizing that the right people will meet you where your worth has already been established, not where it is begged for. Today, we're going to discover why being too friendly can actually diminish your influence, and how learning to value yourself more than the opinions of others is the secret to commanding true respect. There is a subtle trap in being too available that many of us don't even realize. We often think that showing up for everyone, saying yes to every request, and offering kindness without hesitation makes us good people, makes us strong, makes us loved. But the reality is that over-availability can quietly undermine the respect people have for us, and even worse, it can weaken our own sense of worth. When you are constantly at the beck and call of others, when you make yourself too easy to access emotionally, physically, or mentally, people begin to assume that your value is limitless and unconditional, and they start to treat it as such. What is always there becomes ordinary. What is endlessly available becomes undervalued. And in this, you start to notice patterns. People stop showing appreciation. They begin to take you for granted, and the very relationships you've poured into start feeling one-sided. Respect, true respect, is not something that comes from endless availability. It comes from presence, from intentionality, from showing that your time and energy are precious and not to be wasted. Think about it for a moment. When someone is chasing after you, when they have to work a little to gain your attention, respect naturally forms. But when you make yourself easily accessible, you remove the effort, and in doing so, you also remove the reverence. You are no longer a treasure in their eyes. You become a convenience, and that convenience can come at a cost. Your emotions are stretched thin, your energy is drained, and your peace is compromised. You give yourself away freely, but others may not even recognize the value in what you're offering because it has been made too ordinary. There is a spiritual principle at work here. God often reserves certain blessings, certain favor, certain wisdom to be received with intention. When you mirror that principle in your own life by valuing your own availability, by being selective about who you invest in and when, you align yourself with the natural law of respect and reverence. You are not being selfish, you are being wise. Many times being too friendly is a defense mechanism, a way to be accepted, to be liked, to feel needed. But here's the truth. The people who truly respect you do not require constant availability to recognize your worth. They do not demand your presence in every moment to validate their connection with you. They understand your value even when you are not immediately accessible. And those who do not respect your boundaries or your limited availability reveal themselves, and in a sense, they free you to focus on the relationships that matter. Being too available can also blur the lines of reciprocity. When you are constantly giving, others may feel entitled to your time, your advice, your support, your love. They may take without returning, assuming that your generosity is a permanent resource rather than a choice that carries weight. Respect is born from scarcity, not manipulation, but from recognizing that your energy, your focus, your presence is a gift, and gifts are precious when they are given intentionally. You create a rhythm in your life where people learn to value your contribution, not as something to exploit, but as something to honor. And let's not overlook the personal cost. Every time you stretch yourself to be available to everyone, you chip away at your own boundaries, your own peace, your own sense of self. Over time, this pattern erodes confidence and can leave you questioning your own worth. You may begin to feel exhausted, invisible, or even resentful because the very people you pour into do not reflect the respect or appreciation that you expect. But when you embrace the principle of selective availability, when you understand that your presence is valuable and not to be wasted, you create a natural filter that strengthens your inner circle, reinforces self-respect, and communicates a clear message. You are not easily available because your worth is not easily earned. Boundaries are not just rules you set for others, they are declarations of your worth. When you establish limits, when you define what is acceptable and what is not, you are sending a powerful message, not only to the world, but to yourself, that your time, your energy, your heart, and your presence are not disposable. Over-friendliness often comes with blurred boundaries, and blurred boundaries make it easy for people to step over you without consequence. Think about it. When someone can always call on you, always ask of you, always demand your attention, there is little motivation for them to show consideration or respect. Respect grows in the soil of boundaries because boundaries create a tension, a recognition that your availability is not guaranteed, that your kindness has limits, and that your involvement in someone else's life is a choice, not an obligation. Many of us shy away from boundaries because we confuse them with selfishness. We think that saying no, that stepping back, that not immediately meeting every demand is unkind. But in reality, boundaries are the vessel through which true kindness flows. They prevent the depletion of your spirit, they protect your emotional bandwidth, and they cultivate relationships that are reciprocal, intentional, and meaningful. Without boundaries, you are like an open door with no latch. Anyone can walk in, take what they want, and leave without ever giving anything in return. But when you erect healthy boundaries, you are telling the world that your presence is valuable, that your heart is precious, and that you are not here to be treated carelessly. The act of boundary setting is both practical and spiritual. It is practical because it prevents exhaustion and preserves energy. It is spiritual because it aligns with the principle that God created you as a person of value, deserving of respect, deserving of peace, deserving of intentional connections. Boundaries help you discern who belongs in your life, who deserves your investment, and who is simply passing through. They clarify your priorities and guard your emotional space. When someone tests your boundaries and you hold firm, you are not being unkind. You are teaching them that respect must be earned, not assumed. You are showing them that your life is not an endless buffet of availability, but a sacred space that commands consideration. Over-friendliness often erodes this dynamic. When you never say no, when you never assert your limits, people begin to assume that they have the right to everything you offer. They forget the value of effort. They take for granted the sacrifices you make, and they fail to recognize the weight of your time and energy. In contrast, boundaries cultivate honor. They create an environment where people pause before taking, where they consider before asking, where they approach with reverence rather than entitlement. They teach others how to treat you because you have made it clear how you expect to be treated. Another powerful aspect of boundaries is that they protect your identity. Without them, over-friendliness can dilute who you are, forcing you to prioritize others' needs over your own. And over time, you can lose sight of your own purpose and passions. By defining what you will and will not tolerate, you reclaim control of your life. You make deliberate choices about where your energy goes, who earns your attention, and how your time is spent. This is not arrogance, this is wisdom. This is a recognition that your resources, emotional, mental, and spiritual, are finite, and that honoring them ensures you are able to show up fully for the people and the purposes that truly matter. Boundaries also shape your relationships. When you are clear about your limits, people respond in kind. They understand that respect is a requirement, not an optional courtesy. They learn to honor your space, to value your presence, and to invest in you in ways that are meaningful and sustaining. And as you maintain these boundaries consistently, you begin to attract people who recognize your worth naturally, people who do not demand, manipulate, or take advantage, but who contribute to your life in ways that are reciprocal and enriching. Not everyone deserves your time, your energy, or your attention. This is a truth that is often hard for us to accept because we are wired to be giving, to be accommodating, to be helpful. But here's the reality. The world is full of people who will drain you, diminish you, or take advantage of your generosity if you do not choose wisely. Over-friendliness can blind you to this reality, leading you to invest in relationships that do not honor your worth, do not reciprocate your effort, and do not bring value to your life. Every moment you give to the wrong people is a moment you steal from yourself, from your purpose, from your growth, and from the relationships that are meant to elevate you. Learning to discern who truly deserves your presence is not an act of arrogance, it is an act of self-respect. Think about the people you allow into your inner circle. Are they there because they enhance your life, encourage your growth, and honor your boundaries? Or are they there because you feel obligated, because you want to be liked, or because you fear conflict if you say no? When you are too friendly, you often attract people who see you as a resource rather than as a person. They do not seek a mutual exchange. They seek convenience. They take your kindness for granted because they have learned that it comes without condition, without limit, without expectation. And over time, this pattern erodes not only your energy, but also your sense of self. You may begin to wonder if your effort is ever enough, if your love is ever appreciated, if your presence is ever truly valued. God calls us to invest in people with intention. There is wisdom in discernment, in recognizing that not everyone who asks for your time deserves it. Some people are temporary, some are lessons, some are mirrors to teach you what not to tolerate. And while it may feel uncomfortable to withhold your energy, to step back, or to say no, these actions are necessary for your spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. They are the practical ways that you demonstrate to yourself and to the world that your life is not to be treated carelessly. When you choose who deserves your attention, you are creating a standard for the treatment you will accept, and in doing so, you are cultivating respect for yourself and for your resources. Over-friendliness also confuses people about your value. When you are always available, always agreeable, always giving, you inadvertently send the message that your presence is free, that your energy is endless, that your love is unconditional, regardless of how it is treated. But this is not how respect is earned, and this is not how influence is built. Respect requires a measure of scarcity. Influence requires intentionality. People need to understand that your attention is not a commodity to be taken lightly, but a gift to be cherished. When you begin to discern who truly deserves your time and focus, you elevate the quality of your relationships, you preserve your energy, and you establish the foundation for meaningful connections that honor both parties. It is also important to remember that your energy is finite. Every commitment, every conversation, every act of kindness requires an investment from you. When you give indiscriminately, you risk overextending yourself, creating stress, fatigue, and even resentment. But when you are selective, you protect your capacity to give generously where it truly matters. You ensure that your efforts have impact, that your love has resonance, and that your presence is appreciated rather than taken for granted. Choosing who deserves your attention does not make you unkind, it makes you wise. It does not make you selfish, it makes you strong. It does not close doors, it opens the right ones. By discerning carefully, you align yourself with people, opportunities, and experiences that lift you, challenge you, and honor your worth. And as you continue to make these intentional choices, you will find that respect, value, and reciprocity naturally follow. People respect scarcity, not constant presence. This is a principle that many of us struggle to understand because we live in a culture that celebrates being available at all times, that rewards immediate responses, and that glorifies constant connection. But the truth is, when you are always present, always ready, always easy to access, people stop valuing your presence. Scarcity is not about being distant or unkind. It is about demonstrating that your attention, your energy, and your time are not to be taken lightly. When something is scarce, it is treasured. When something is abundant, it becomes ordinary. Your presence, your kindness, and your attention are no different. When you recognize that your availability is limited and deliberate, people begin to treat you with the respect and reverence that they might have overlooked before. Consider the way human psychology works. We value things that require effort, things that are not easily attained, and things that have a cost associated with them. When someone must work to earn your time or attention, it creates a natural sense of respect. When your presence is given freely without limits, the very thing that makes you precious, your energy, your commitment, your authenticity, is lost on people who take it for granted. Scarcity communicates worth. It says, I am not here for everyone, and my time is not free for anyone. My energy is valuable, and only those who honor it will receive it fully. This is not arrogance, it is self-preservation, and it is a principle that protects your spirit while elevating your influence. Being constantly available can also diminish your impact. When you say yes to every request, every invitation, and every need, you dilute the value of your presence. People stop recognizing the significance of your involvement because it has become a constant. But when you practice selective availability, your presence carries weight. Your voice matters more. Your attention has power. And the people who are truly aligned with your purpose learn to appreciate you, to wait for you, and to approach you with respect. Scarcity creates anticipation, and anticipation generates reverence. Scarcity also protects your emotional and mental well-being. Over-friendliness can leave you exhausted, resentful, or taken advantage of because people who do not respect boundaries can drain you without realizing it. But when you intentionally limit your availability, you create space for rest, reflection, and growth. You preserve your capacity to invest deeply in the people and opportunities that truly deserve your energy. You stop overextending yourself for those who will not reciprocate, and you begin to channel your efforts where they have meaningful impact. Scarcity is a form of self-care disguised as strategy. It ensures that your resources are allocated wisely and that your presence remains powerful. Another important aspect of scarcity is that it teaches others how to value you. When people understand that your attention is not automatically guaranteed, they approach you differently. They recognize that your time has worth, that your energy carries significance, and that your involvement is a privilege, not a right. Scarcity cultivates respect because it forces people to pause, to consider, and to act with intention. They cannot take you for granted when they know that your presence is not a constant, and they learn to approach you with the reverence and honor that aligns with the value you carry. Finally, scarcity is a spiritual principle as much as it is a practical one. God often works in the space of tension where effort, patience, and discernment are required. He does not make his blessings available indiscriminately. They must be sought, pursued, and valued. When you mirror that principle in your own life by limiting availability, setting boundaries, and valuing your presence, you align yourself with the natural rhythm of respect and honor. Your influence grows because you are no longer taken for granted, and your relationships deepen because they are entered into with intention and reverence. Your kindness should empower, not enable. This is a lesson that many of us learn the hard way because we confuse giving with permitting, love with tolerance, and generosity with submission. Being too friendly often comes with a hidden cost. It allows others to take advantage of your good nature, to walk over your boundaries, and to rely on your presence without accountability. True kindness does not make people dependent on you. It encourages them to grow, to step up, and to respect the value you bring. When you empower instead of enabling, your actions produce fruit that honors both your integrity and your energy. People learn to value you not because you are always there, but because your presence inspires them to rise, to act, and to honor the space you occupy. Too often, over-friendliness becomes a form of enabling. You may find yourself constantly solving problems for others, rescuing them from situations they could handle, or giving your attention without asking for respect in return. While it feels noble to help, there is a fine line between assistance and allowance. Enabling communicates that there are no consequences for disrespect, laziness, or entitlement, and it quietly erodes the respect people have for you. When you empower instead, you create conditions where people must rise to the occasion. They learn that your kindness comes with intention and that your support is valuable because it is not guaranteed. Empowerment transforms your relationships from convenience-based to respect-based, and it establishes a framework where your energy is honored. Empowering others also protects your own well-being. When you allow your kindness to be taken for granted, you may feel drained, frustrated, or undervalued. You may even begin to question your worth or the impact of your presence. But when you practice empowerment, you create a dynamic where your involvement produces growth and accountability. You contribute meaningfully without being depleted, and you inspire others to act responsibly. This is the essence of being a person of influence. Your energy is invested in a way that elevates rather than diminishes both yourself and those around you. It is important to recognize that empowerment requires boundaries and discernment. Not everyone is ready to receive your guidance, your time, or your support in a way that is respectful. Some will continue to demand, manipulate, or take advantage. Others will step into responsibility when given the chance. The key is to differentiate between those who are willing to grow and those who are not. Empowerment is a selective act. It is intentional, not indiscriminate. It communicates that your presence is valuable and that your kindness is not a free-for-all. By empowering rather than enabling, you ensure that your relationships are reciprocal, that your energy is preserved, and that your influence carries weight. Kindness that empowers also aligns with spiritual principles. God's love is not permissive to the point of allowing exploitation. It is purposeful and transformative. When you mirror this principle in your life, your actions produce results that honor both your heart and your energy. People learn to respect you not simply because of what you give, but because of the intentional way in which you give. Empowerment communicates that you are not here to be used, but to inspire, guide, and uplift in ways that cultivate growth and responsibility. It positions you as someone whose presence is a blessing, whose attention is sacred, and whose kindness carries weight because it is not unconditional in the sense of being without discernment. Furthermore, empowering kindness fosters deeper, more meaningful connections. People respect those who challenge them, who set standards, and who offer support that encourages growth. They may resist at first, but over time they learn that your presence is not about convenience, it is about transformation. By empowering rather than enabling, you create relationships that are rooted in accountability, mutual respect, and intentionality. Your energy is no longer wasted on entitlement or dependency. Instead, it becomes a force that inspires, strengthens, and uplifts those who are truly deserving of your investment. Learning to say no is a spiritual act of self-preservation. It is not merely a social skill or a polite boundary. It is a declaration of your worth, a recognition that your time, energy, and presence are valuable, and a commitment to protect the life God has entrusted to you. Many of us struggle with saying no because we fear rejection, we fear conflict, or we fear being seen as unkind. But over-friendliness comes at a higher cost. It depletes your energy, diminishes your influence, and invites disrespect. Every time you automatically say yes to someone who does not honor your presence, you send a message that your boundaries are negotiable, that your time is disposable, and that your energy can be taken without consideration. Saying no is not about shutting people out. It is about creating space for what truly matters and affirming that your life carries purpose that cannot be hijacked by constant demands. Saying no is both courageous and liberating. It requires a deep awareness of your own worth and the confidence to prioritize your life over the expectations of others. When you learn to say no, you are not rejecting the person. You are affirming your own life, your own responsibilities, and your own calling. You are communicating that your presence is not cheap, that your kindness is not to be exploited, and that your heart is not a resource to be drained by anyone who does not recognize its value. There is power in restraint, power in discernment, and power in the spiritual act of protecting yourself from being overly available. Saying no becomes a declaration that your life is sacred, that your energy is a treasure, and that your relationships must honor the worth you carry. Too often we conflate saying yes with being good, and this confusion drives over-friendliness. We want to be liked, we want to be needed, we want to be indispensable. But over-friendliness can result in the exact opposite. People take your presence for granted, your energy is drained, and your self-respect erodes. When you embrace the power of no, you reclaim control over your life, establish healthy boundaries, and communicate clearly the standard of respect you expect. No becomes a tool not of denial, but of empowerment. It allows you to give intentionally, love purposefully, and invest in relationships that are reciprocal rather than exploitative. Saying no is also deeply connected to spiritual alignment. God calls us to live intentional lives, to steward our energy wisely, and to invest in what truly matters. When we overextend ourselves through constant availability, we deviate from this principle and open the door for exploitation, distraction, and unnecessary stress. Saying no honors your divine design. It acknowledges that your life has a rhythm, a purpose, and a priority, and that not every request, demand, or expectation deserves entry into your space. It is an act of obedience to your own value and to the calling that God has placed in your life. Furthermore, learning to say no cultivates respect from others. When you are always available, people may come to expect your attention as a right. But when you consistently demonstrate discernment and assert your limits, they learn to approach you differently. They understand that your time is not a given, that your energy is not limitless, and that your presence is a gift to be earned and honored. Saying no teaches people to value you, to honor your boundaries, and to recognize that your influence is meaningful because it is intentional and not automatic. Finally, saying no preserves your ability to say yes when it truly matters. Every moment spent accommodating everyone else is a moment taken away from what is divinely important. By saying no strategically, you safeguard your energy, protect your peace, and reserve your attention for the people, projects, and opportunities that align with your purpose. Saying no is not rejection. It is an affirmation of life, a spiritual practice of discernment, and a declaration that your worth is not up for negotiation.